You go in the records of Congress and you'll find the first 2 weeks they said, okay, the House will meet over here, the Senate will meet over here, we're going to have the Supreme Court meet here, and yes, the Supreme Court met inside the Capitol so that Congress could keep an eye on the Supreme Court. That was their plan. So all this happened, and you find they finally got into business on December the 4th, 1800. And if you look in the records of Congress for December the 4th, 1800, it's interesting to see what happened on that day. The Speaker of the House came to the House with a proposal. It says the Speaker informed the House that the chaplains had proposed, if agreeable to the House, to hold divine service every Sunday in their chamber. So here's the proposal. Guys, chaplains have made a recommendation that on Sundays we have church in the Capitol. Now, that's significant because the Constitution has a clause called the Sundays Accepted Clause. Sundays are off limits for congressional stuff. If the President vetoes a bill, he gets 10 days, Sundays accepted. You don't count Sunday because that was the Sabbath back then. And so with that aspect, Sundays are off. So let's have church in the Capitol on Sunday. Now, the House of Representatives was the largest room in the Capitol, so the plan was, let's do it there. You had a chaplain in the House, a chaplain in the Senate. They're going to alternate Sundays. One chaplain will be in charge one week, one the next week, etc. They go back and forth. Now, to get this done, they got to have the approval of the House and the Senate. So the approval of the House gave it. The Speaker back then was Theodore Sedgwick, Speaker of the House, and the Senate gave their approval, and the head of the Senate in 1800 was Thomas Jefferson, who is Vice President of the United States. The Vice President is head of the Senate. So Jefferson gives approval that every Sunday we're going to have church in the U.S. Capitol.
Now, church services being held in the Capitol is one of the stories that David Barton and the other revisionists used to drag Thomas Jefferson into something that Jefferson really had nothing to do with. I wrote about this in my book, so I'm just going to read what I wrote about it there. An interesting thing about the Liars for Jesus is that even in cases where a story is basically true, they manage to turn it into a lie by adding lies to it. More often than not, the lies are added to make Thomas Jefferson the center of the story. Church services being held in the Capitol building is a good example of this. Church services actually were held in the Capitol building, and Jefferson really was known to attend them. This true story, however, isn't good enough, so lies are added to it to make Jefferson more involved. The following is from the version that appears on David Barton's Wall Builders website. Quote, according to the congressional records for late November of 1800, Congress spent the first few weeks organizing the Capitol rooms, committees, locations, etc. Then on December 4th, 1800, Congress approved the use of the Capitol building as a church building. The approval of the Capitol for church was given by both the House and the Senate, with House approval being given by Speaker of the House Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg, and Senate approval being given by the President of the Senate, Thomas Jefferson. Interestingly, Jefferson's approval came while he was still officially Vice President, but after he had just been elected President. End quote. Neither the Senate nor Thomas Jefferson had anything whatsoever to do with this. The House of Representatives didn't need or ask for the approval of the Senate when the chaplains requested the use of the House chamber for Sunday services. The House itself didn't even vote on it. The Speaker simply announced that the chaplains had proposed to hold services in their chamber on Sundays, and the House got on with the more important business of the day, deciding where the stenographers should sit. Now, for the more observant people watching this video, you may have noticed a slight difference between what Barton said in his Beck U class and the quote I just read from his website that's in my book. In the Beck U lecture, he correctly said that the Speaker of the House at the time was Theodore Sedgwick. But in the quote from his Wall Builders website, he said it was Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg. He has since corrected that on his website also. So Barton goes through the trouble of correcting this minor detail of who the Speaker of the House happened to be at the time, while leaving the story of Thomas Jefferson's involvement, which is a lie, intact.